Let me just start very quickly by thanking the board of directors for all the work that all of them do, but especially Cheryl for doing the programming and getting a good, really good list of speakers for the entire program schedule. I'm not going to say anything more than this because I want to turn it over to Bob Thompson right away so he can introduce the program and the speakers. So Bob, you have the floor.
Oh, all right, Tony. Thanks very much. So I'm fairly new to CAPCA. I joined last year, and Cheryl asked me and a few other members to help her out on the program committee. So I and some other committee members are doing the work to kind of help find speakers and get these programs organized and put together. I reached out to the Coast Guard, I think it was back in February in the quiet winter time when not a lot's going on in the boating world, and asked for a speaker. And I was pleasantly surprised to be offered 3 speakers, some really talented people with an amazing depth of maritime experience, both, hands-on operational and some of the behind the scenes regulatory and compliance work that makes the whole safety system work. I won't go through all the bios. Those are all there for you to read and really appreciate what all these professionals have accomplished. I think we won't be surprised if we tell you that given some of the current events in Baltimore, 2 of our presenters are not able to speak tonight, but they've all had a hand behind the scenes in helping to put this together. So I'm very pleased to welcome Lieutenant Stasia Ellis. You can read the details of her bio, but she is moving through her Coast Guard career and becoming a very accomplished maritime professional. So before I turn it over to Lieutenant Ellis to give us a very good presentation, I just want to say, please put your questions in the chat. I'll monitor those. Unless it's a question that we really need to jump into, I'd like to wait and do the questions at the end of the presentation. So go ahead, throw them in the chat. And once we reach the end of the presentation, I'll run through the questions and try to moderate those and take it from there. So Lieutenant Ellis, thank you very much for joining us. I'll turn it over to you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Mr. Thompson. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to today's presentation on emergency services on the water, with a focus on the critical role played by the U.S. Coast Guard in managing and overseeing search and rescue missions. As Mr. Thompson said, I'm the only one who will be able to join us tonight. Unfortunately, due to work and personal conflicts, Commander Concepcion and Commander Smoke may not be able to join us tonight. But at the end of the presentation, if there are questions they're best suited to answer, I will sure to get those answers and provide a response to you. But looking forward to our discussion tonight. Emergency services on the water encompass a myriad of challenges and scenarios, from maritime accidents and vessel distress to natural disasters and medical emergencies. The dynamic nature of these situations demands swift and coordinated responses, often in harsh and unforgiving environments. Throughout the next 45 minutes, we will delve into various aspects of how the Coast Guard operates in conjunction with other agencies to ensure effective response and assistance during maritime emergencies. Now that we've set the stage for understanding the challenges associated with emergency services on the water, let's zero in on the indispensable role played by the Coast Guard in managing and overseeing search and rescue missions. Just doing a check to make sure that advanced to slide 2.
Yes,
We're good.
Wonderful. When it comes to maritime emergencies, the Coast Guard stands at the forefront of the nation's waterways, charged with a broad spectrum of responsibilities ranging from maritime law enforcement to environmental protection. The Coast Guard's SAR capabilities are among its most vital functions. On the following slides are some ways in which we approach our search and rescue responsibilities, but first let's define search and rescue. Search and rescue, or SAR for short, is defined as the use of available resources to assist persons and property in potential or actual distress. Our Coast Guard SAR mission response goals are 30-minute underway time for surface assets and 30-minute airborne time for air assets, or planes and helicopters. On scene with the vessel in distress within 90 minutes from anywhere within the corresponding unit's area of operations, or arrive on scene within that time frame to commence searching, which when combined results in response on scene time in under 2 hours. That is our goal for all Coast Guard response units across the country. For a few minutes, let's get back to how we approach our search and rescue responsibilities, and later we'll delve even deeper into how we prosecute search and rescue. Our approach to SAR starts with our authority and jurisdiction to perform search and rescue missions. The Coast Guard has legal authority and jurisdiction over a vast expanse of waters, including territorial seas, international waters, and inland waterways. This expansive jurisdiction enables the Coast Guard to swiftly respond to emergencies wherever they may occur, ensuring a seamless and coordinated search and rescue effort. 24/7 operational readiness. The Coast Guard maintains a state of perpetual readiness with SAR assets strategically positioned and crews standing by 24/7 across the nation. Boat crews that operate on various boat platforms, air crews on various rotary wing and fixed wing air assets, and command center crews that operate out of command centers, much like our command center some of you had the opportunity to visit earlier this year. Multi-mission capabilities. While search and rescue is a primary focus, the Coast Guard's capabilities extend far beyond search and rescue, from responding to environmental disasters and combating illegal fishing to enforcing maritime security and interdicting drug traffickers. The Coast Guard's versatile fleet and highly trained personnel are equipped to handle a wide range of missions. This multi-mission approach ensures that the Coast Guard remains a formidable force for good on the water, safeguarding lives, protecting the environment, and promoting maritime security. Integration and coordination. Effective SAR operations hinge on seamless coordination and integration among various stakeholders, including federal, state, and local agencies, as well as international partners. The Coast Guard serves as a key player in this complex network, orchestrating efforts across multiple agencies and jurisdictions to ensure a unified and effective response. Though through robust communication systems, joint training exercises, and established protocols, the Coast Guard fosters collaboration and synergy among all stakeholders involved in search and rescue missions. Community engagement and education. Beyond response and rescue, the Coast Guard plays a vital role in community engagement and education, raising awareness about maritime safety practices, promoting boater education programs, and empowering communities to be proactive in preventing emergencies on the water. And lastly, innovation and adaptability. As technology evolves and new threats emerge, the Coast Guard remains at the forefront of innovation and adaptation. From advanced search and rescue technologies to cutting-edge training programs, the Coast Guard continually strives to enhance its capabilities and stay ahead of the curve, leveraging innovation to maximize the effectiveness of its SAR operations. Some of the questions we'll address in this presentation include the Coast Guard's management of a whole-of-government approach to search and rescue missions. We'll delve into the concept of a whole-of-government approach to SAR, explaining how the Coast Guard coordinates with federal, state, and local agencies to ensure a comprehensive response. We'll also highlight the importance of interoperability and communication among different agencies to streamline SAR efforts and save lives efficiently. We'll go behind the scenes at the Coast Guard Command Center. Attendees will get a glimpse into the inner workings of the Coast Guard Command Center, understanding the process of receiving, assessing, and responding to distress calls on Channel 16. We'll shed light on the coordination between various units within the Command Center, showcasing seamless teamwork that enables effective search and rescue operations. We'll briefly highlight the role of local, county, and state assets. I know there's a desire to bring in other agencies for these types of discussions, and they are better equipped to go into much detail about their organization's capabilities and approach to SAR. I'll just mention the types we rely on during SAR missions. Common incidents requiring assistance. Attendees will learn about the most common incidents on our local waters that necessitate assistance from the Coast Guard and other assets, emphasizing the importance of preparedness and prevention. Learning from investigations. We'll explore how investigations into maritime incidents provide valuable lessons for captains and boaters, underscoring the Coast Guard's role in conducting thorough investigations and disseminating findings to improve safety practices. How can you help during emergencies? We'll talk about practical advice on how to respond during emergencies, stressing the importance of staying calm, assessing the situation, and following established protocols, as well as proactive measures to enhance boating safety, including proper equipment maintenance, crew training, and staying informed about weather conditions. We'll highlight the role of education and community outreach in fostering a culture of safety on the water. What is a whole of government approach to search and rescue? This is a coordinated effort involving federal, state, and local agencies pooling resources and expertise for SAR operations. The Coast Guard's ability to engage in a coordinated response with other federal, state, local, territorial, and non-governmental organizations is critical to mission success. Most major incidents will cross many jurisdictional boundaries and over several agencies' area of responsibility. As a result, multiple individual agencies will be required to come together to accomplish a common goal. As the primary coordinating authority in maritime search and rescue, the Coast Guard achieves collaboration with other governmental agencies through the establishment of partnerships, agreements, and protocols to ensure seamless coordination. These MOUs and MOAs highlight delineation of duties, jurisdictional elements, as well as a shared responsibility among agencies and the need for collective action in search and rescue missions. Also key for enhanced whole of government approach to search and rescue, interoperability and compatibility of equipment, procedures, and communication systems. Partner agencies may use different communication systems or frequencies, making it difficult to exchange critical information in real time during search and rescue operations. Varying equipment and technologies. Each agency may have different equipment and technologies, leading to compatibility issues and difficulties in integrating resources for a unified response. Jurisdictional boundaries. SAR incidents often occur across jurisdictional boundaries, requiring coordination among multiple agencies with overlapping responsibilities, which can lead to confusion and delays in decision-making. Training and procedures. Variations in training standards and operational procedures among partner agencies can hinder effective coordination during SAR missions, leading to misunderstandings and inefficiencies. To overcome these challenges, the Coast Guard employs several strategies. Standardization of protocols. The Coast Guard works to establish standardized protocols and procedures for communication, resource allocation, and decision-making, ensuring that all partner agencies operate on the same page during SAR operations. Joint training and exercises. Regular joint training exercises and drills are conducted with partner agencies to familiarize personnel with interoperable equipment and procedures, enhance teamwork, and improve coordination during actual SAR incidents. Technology integration. The Coast Guard invests in technology that promotes interoperability, such as radio systems with multiple frequency bands, data sharing platforms, and common operating pictures, enabling seamless communication and coordination among partner agencies. Cross-agency liaison officers. The Coast Guard assigns liaison officers to work directly with partner agencies, facilitating communication, coordinating resources, and resolving interoperability issues in real time during SAR operations. And interagency agreements and partnerships. Formal agreements and partnerships are established between the Coast Guard and partner agencies, outlining roles, responsibilities, and procedures for collaboration during SAR incidents, ensuring clarity and consistency in operations. Right now, we're just taking a look at some of the incidents and operations which may require interagency cooperation, and they include terrorism and terrorist threats, search and rescue operations, as we've been talking about, mass rescue operations, hurricanes and other heavy weather, natural disasters, law enforcement operations. And all of these could have a search and rescue aspect at some point in the case prosecution. The Coast Guard coordinates with partner agencies through joint exercises, information sharing, and resource allocation to enhance SAR capabilities. Some of the entities we coordinate with include the DoD, federal entities such as the FBI, the FAA, the FCC, some state entities, state police, state fisheries, local police, local fire departments, hospitals, commercial companies such as salvage companies, marinas, ferries, and many others. All right, now let's take a more granular look at the Coast Guard's companies such as salvage Now let's take a more granular look at the Coast Guard's SAR system and how we approach SAR operations, doing somewhat of a behind the scenes at the Coast Guard Command Center. A flurry of activity occurs on the watch floor when distress calls are made on Channel 16. As you know, this channel serves as a vital communications link for mariners in need of assistance. At the Command Center, highly trained personnel assess the situation, coordinate resources, and dispatch assistance swiftly and efficiently. It's a finely tuned operation that relies on effective communication and rapid decision-making. Now here's a quick look at the Command Center makeup at Sector Maryland NCR. We have a total of about 24 personnel of different ranks who serve differing vital functions inside the Command Center. Different command centers across the Coast Guard vary in staffing levels based on their specific operational demands, geographic location, and area of responsibility. Larger command centers located in high traffic or high risk areas may have more extensive staffing to handle increased workloads and complex operations. Conversely, smaller centers in less busy regions may operate with leaner teams. Despite these variations, all Coast Guard command centers share fundamental similarities in their organization and operational procedures. Each command center is staffed with watchstanders who monitor distress channels, assess situations, and coordinate responses. Standardized protocols and detailed SAR check sheets ensure consistency and efficiency in handling emergencies, regardless of the command center's size. This uniformity enables the Coast Guard to maintain high operational standards and seamless coordination across its diverse command centers. We'll talk a little bit more about check sheets in subsequent slides. The Command Center watch construct include 4 major watch components: the comms unit or communications unit, the situations unit, the operations unit, and the command duty officer. The communications unit watchstander plays a critical role inside the command center. They are responsible for monitoring required voice frequencies, maintaining communications guard requirements, and as directed, execute tactical communications for emergent operations. They maintain communication links between various units within the Coast Guard, as well as with external entities such as a partner agency or the public. If you're talking to someone over the radio, you more than likely will be talking with the communications unit watchstander. The Situation Unit Watchstander. This entity is primarily responsible for monitoring planned and emergent marine safety and environmental protection activities within the area of operations. They track the status of activities and readiness of Blue Forces, collecting, fusing, and disseminating important information, and monitoring the common operational picture, which is essentially the status board of movements within the maritime environment. The Operations Unit. This entity is responsible for the planning and execution of incident response missions conducted within the area of operations, primarily law enforcement operations and search and rescue operations. These are primarily the unit's search and rescue mission planners. The Command Duty Officer. The Command Duty Officer is the direct representative of the operational commander for current operations. The CDO, short for Command Duty Officer, is a critical component of the Command Center Watch, designed to optimize the functionality of the watch, and is responsible for the performance of the watch in the execution of its primary functions and ensuring proper coordination of operational plans, communication among differing staff elements at the sector, port partners, other government agencies, and other stakeholders. Together, the watch team monitors search and rescue frequencies and communications, relays information when a distress call or any other significant communication is received, coordinates resources in response to distress calls or other operational needs, ensuring that communication between search and rescue elements remain clear and efficient. They assist in decision-making and maintain situational awareness from the initial phases of a response to case conclusion. This is what the larger Coast Guard SAR chain looks like. As you can see, the command center is only a piece of the search and rescue decision-making matrix, a major piece nonetheless, but there are other entities involved in search and rescue decision-making to validate decisions that are made and actions that are taken to prevent loss of life in every situation. Below the Command Center Watchstanders is the Search and Rescue Unit, or SRU, and Managing On-Scene Coordinator, or OSC. You'll see those three elements towards the bottom of the slide. So the SRU is responsible for executing the plan for the search, providing on-scene assistance, delivering supplies, survival equipment, rescuing survivors, and maintaining comms, advising the command center of on-scene weather conditions, what they observe on scene, and the status of the vessel in question. Another key role in the search and rescue chain is a SAR mission coordinator. And this person is who is ultimately responsible for oversight and prosecution of each search and rescue case. This position is designated. They are assigned to every search and rescue mission, and they have full operational authority to prosecute the SAR case from initial notification to the conclusion of the case. Each decision and action the command center team makes is made on the behalf of the SAR mission coordinator, or SMC. So each decision and action is briefed to the SMC for their awareness and approval throughout the entirety of the SAR case. Now we'll transition to taking a look at how the command center evaluates requests for assistance, some of the policy that governs how we handle varying requests for assistance, and tools we use to guide decision-making. The first one we'll delve into is the Coast Guard's Maritime Search and Rescue Assistance Policy, or MSAP, as we call it. The MSAP is the result of an effort enacted by Congress in 1982. It directed the Commandant to review Coast Guard policies and procedures for towing and salvage of disabled vessels in order to further minimize the possibility of Coast Guard competition or interference with commercial enterprise. The review was directed because of congressional concern that Coast Guard resources were being used unnecessarily to provide non-emergency assistance to disabled vessels that could be adequately assisted by the private sector. Prioritization of life-saving operations. The policy emphasizes the Coast Guard's primary mission to save lives over salvaging vessels and cargo. This strategic shift means that while the Coast Guard may assist in preventing immediate danger to property if human lives are at risk, they generally defer non-life-threatening salvage operations to commercial salvers. Increased role of commercial salvers. By reducing its involvement in salvage operations, the Coast Guard has created more opportunities for private salvage companies to handle these tasks. There has been a mutually beneficial effect of this policy. The commercial salvage industry has grown and taken on a larger share of these operations, allowing the Coast Guard to allocate resources more effectively towards search and rescue missions. Operational efficiency and resource allocation. The policy helps the Coast Guard to better manage its resources and personnel, focusing on SAR missions that require immediate response to save lives. This has resulted in fewer instances where Coast Guard assets are used for purely salvage purposes. Let's take a look at what the MSAP policy looks like in actuality. What happens when we get a call for assistance from a mariner and some of the steps that the command center is taking to differentiate a non-distress situation that can be resolved with the use of non-Coast Guard assistance from a distress incident that will trigger our response and the whole of government response we talked about earlier. The Coast Guard utilizes various decision support tools and protocols to aid in the assessment of distress incidents in accordance with the International Aeronautical and Maritime Search and Rescue (IMSAR) guidelines, which outline specific indicators of distress. When the Coast Guard receives a call for assistance, the SAR mission coordinator via the command center is mandated to evaluate the circumstances to determine the severity of the case using information obtained from the mariner. In determining the appropriate emergency phase, the watch may consider a variety of factors, such as the nature of the situation, the position or lack of known location, type, size, reported condition of the vessel, visibility, tides and current conditions, present or forecasted weather, special considerations such as the number of personnel on board, or their kids on board, or their, individuals with health or related medical problems on board. After going through these factors and determining the mariner or vessel to be not in distress, it is the Coast Guard's policy to advise the mariner and seek the mariner's desires. They are advised that it appears there is no imminent danger, that it is the Coast Guard's policy to defer to an alternate source of assistance, and that the Coast Guard will assist in contacting any specifically requested alternate assistance, such as a commercial provider, family, or a friend to assist. We will make calls to a family member or a friend on their behalf who is able to provide assistance, or contact a commercial assistance provider on their behalf, and will monitor the situation until help arrives. You might also be familiar with our Maritime Assistance Request broadcast. How it works is that if the mariner refuses any of the above options, we will offer to transmit this broadcast on their behalf to alert potential mariners in the vicinity who may be able to offer assistance. The Coast Guard formulates the broadcast message detailing the vessel situation and the type of assistance needed. The MARB, or the Maritime Assistance Request broadcast, is transmitted via Channel 16. The broadcast is made at regular intervals to ensure that nearby mariners and commercial operators receive the message. And then we monitor responses to the MARB. If a nearby vessel or commercial operator offers assistance, the Coast Guard facilitates communication between the parties to coordinate the assistance effort and monitor the situation until the situation is resolved. For situations that are determined to be in distress, this is our initial search and rescue quick response card. This is a standard form we use all across the Coast Guard to document all relevant details that may be associated with a case. The Coast Guard is known for the large number of questions we ask when taking a distress report. The thought is, and a very valid one, if this is our only opportunity to talk to the mariner in distress or the person making the report, the more information we have about the vessel, its location, the number of people on board, the nature of the distress, and other critical details, the more effective our response will be. It is also imperative for risk mitigation. In high-stakes search and rescue operations, overlooking critical details can have serious consequences. Detailed check sheets help mitigate risks by ensuring that every aspect of the operation is considered and addressed. This thoroughness helps protect both the rescuers and those being rescued. We operate from the premise that if there is any question as to the degree of danger to persons or property, the case is classified as being in the distress phase. This slide also outlines some of our actions when there is a potential or actual SAR case that we are notified on or notified of. In the initial awareness phase, we are gathering as much detail as we possibly can, the most important being highlighted on the slide. Well, not highlighted anymore. So the most important are the nature of distress, location, time of incident, vessel description or condition, number, and condition of people on board. In the initial phase, we are evaluating the particulars of the case, having risk management discussions, designating SMC, notifying available Coast Guard and partner agencies, and getting them ready to launch. And in some cases, reaching out to commercial or community entities for assistance as needed. In the planning stage, we are calculating likely position of the search object using a search planning system we have available inside the command center, determining search area size and developing the search plan with considerations on appropriate response assets and search patterns. In the operations stage, we are executing the plan, launching assets with minimum delay, and continuing to evaluate our plan, modifying as necessary based on on-scene observations of search conditions impacted by weather and other environmental factors, on-scene findings, and further case development. This is a very iterative process, highly focused on generating the most effective search based on all the available information. We also run through the planner and operations phases as many times as necessary to achieve this, which brings us to the conclusion stage. This culminates in the missing people being located, the vessel no longer needing assistance, and in unfortunate circumstances where we find a deceased person who was the object of the search. All right, turning our attention to the most common incidents in our local waters that require assistance. This is a representation of all our notifications data or requests for assistance for fiscal year 23. along with our primary notification methods. So in fiscal year 23, we received 891 notifications. 531 notifications were via phone, 192 were via Rescue 21, 74 was by radio, 15 by visual distress signaling devices, and 79 were received by other means. Of the 891 notifications, as was noted on the previous slide, 462 of those notifications resulted in actual SAR cases. And this is a representation of the SAR case locations in the northern part of our area of operations. The same represented in our southern AOR. And of the 462 cases, our efforts, along with that of our agency partners, resulted in 115 lives saved, 450 lives assisted, $4 million in property saved, and $3.99 million in property assisted. This is a breakdown of all of our cases for fiscal year 23, with the top 10 of the most prevalent cases highlighted. 23% of our SAR notifications last year were for disabled vessels. Persons in the water, or PIW notifications, were the second highest at 14%, and distress alert notifications was a close third at 13%. What is also not a surprise, but always illuminating to see, is just how concentrated our summers are with cases. Between June to September, we prosecuted 56% of our fiscal year 23 cases. And over the 8-month period between October to May, we prosecuted 36% of our annual cases. As we approach the end of this presentation, we'll transition to talking briefly about what we can learn from investigations into maritime incidents and how we can improve safety on the water. The Coast Guard marine casualty investigations play a crucial role in ensuring maritime safety and preventing future incidents. For commercial charter boat captains, these investigations offer valuable insights and lessons that can enhance their understanding of safety protocols and best practices in the industry. By delving into the details of maritime incidents, these investigations help identify the root causes of accidents, whether they stem from human error, equipment failure, or external factors. Captains can learn from these findings to better assess risks, improve decision-making processes, and enhance safety measures on board their vessels. The Coast Guard's thorough investigations are essential in determining factors that led to accidents and formulating recommendations to prevent similar occurrences in the future. By disseminating their findings, the Coast Guard fosters a culture of safety within the boating community, enabling captains and other boaters to stay informed about potential hazards and adopt best practices to mitigate risks. The Coast Guard marine casualty investigations and findings are available to the public. These reports are often the impetus for marine safety information bulletins, marine safety alerts, safety recommendations, and other publications accessible to the public. Vessel captains can proactively enhance boating safety by implementing a range of measures that prioritize preparedness, training, and awareness. Some key strategies that captains can adopt include proper equipment maintenance. Regular maintenance of onboard equipment, including engines, navigation systems, safety gear, and emergency supplies, is essential to ensure operational readiness and mitigate the risk of malfunctions or breakdowns during voyages. Crew training. Providing comprehensive training to the crew on safety procedures, emergency protocols, navigation equipment, navigation techniques, and proper use of safety equipment can significantly improve response capabilities in crisis situations and contribute to a culture of safety on board. Weather awareness. Staying informed about weather conditions, both in advance and during trips, is crucial for making well-informed decisions and avoiding potential hazards such as storms, rough seas, or visibility issues. Captains should monitor weather forecasts regularly and adjust their plans accordingly. Education and community outreach. Engaging in educational programs, safety workshops, and community outreach initiatives can play a vital role in promoting a culture of safety on the water. By sharing knowledge, best practices, and experiences with fellow boaters, captains can contribute to a supportive and informed boating community. Through a combination of these proactive measures, vessel captains can bolster safety standards, enhance emergency preparedness, and foster a sense of responsibility for the well-being of all on board. By prioritizing equipment maintenance, crew training, weather awareness, and community engagement, captains can help create a safer and more resilient boating environment for themselves, their crew, and other boaters alike. In conclusion, effective emergency response on the water requires collaboration, preparedness, and ongoing commitment to safety. By working together and adhering to best practices, we can ensure that our waterways remain safe and accessible for all. Thank you for your attention, and I look forward to addressing any questions you may have at this time.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Lieutenant Ellis. That's an amazing presentation. It goes way beyond our Chesapeake region and just shows, you know, you know, what a really all-encompassing organization the Coast Guard is, but it's still in our own region, how many other agencies can come and help when you pick up the radio or the phone, that there's a great depth of resources. I'm looking for, I have a few questions keyed up, by the way. If anybody else has some questions you'd like to fire, you've got the expert right here, so go ahead and put them in the chat. One of the first things I wanted to look at is going back to slide 22. We don't necessarily have to put that back up on the screen, but we were looking at the most common causes of distress incidents. I had to write down some notes on that one before I went by. And what struck me was the majority of them were a disabled vessel where no one was in any immediate danger. And the more severe incidents like capsizing and taking on water and fire seem to be pretty far down that list. Sorry, this is a bit more of an observation than a question. But Lieutenant, I was just wondering if you had any comments on or thoughts on what some of the most commonly occurring things are and how we could help maybe prevent or reduce that number.
So that's a good point. So those disabled vessel notifications, so they started out as being disabled vessels, but these actually transitioned to being actual search and rescue cases. So they came in as, somebody just reporting, hey, I lost propulsion, or, I'm aground, and then, utilizing or 10 factor that we go through to try to get as much information. Why did you lose propulsion? Where are you located? How many persons are on board? What's the unseen weather? The more we dig into those, we realize, okay, this has the potential to deteriorate. And, some of them were actual, search and rescue cases. So we just had a lot more of those vessels initially being, reporting as just being disabled than say, the other ones that you mentioned.
Okay.
But just to clarify, those were actual search and rescue cases.
I'm glad you mentioned that. That changes the perspective a little bit. That's an interesting point. So if a vessel calls in and they wind up getting handed off to commercial assistance, that does not count as a SAR case?
No.
Oh, interesting.
Correct.
Okay, so these started out as disabled, but then they became something, more
Correct.
severe.
or sometimes, they came over as just a disabled, vessel at the time, no major concerns, but because we still do monitor those cases, sometimes they do transition to being SAR cases, and we do dispatch resources in those instances. Sometimes, mariner may call in, they're taking on a little bit of water and they initially have it under control, and then it gets out of hand and it's no longer under control. So, and that goes back to why it's so important for us to, ask all the questions that we ask, because sometimes only when you start digging a little bit deeper, you realize that it's a lot more than, the situation is a lot more dire than initially reported.
Okay, good. One of the points that came up when we toured the command center about a month or so ago was, the challenges of vessels adrift and how often those get reported. What could we as captains do when we see a vessel adrift? Take a picture of it? Is there anything that we could do, should do to help deal with those?
Absolutely. Definitely, take a picture. If you can stay on scene, for a little bit, with the vessel, having that eyes on scene, makes a huge difference for us. You know, if, being able to stay on scene until, Coast Guard vessel or partner agency vessel arrives on scene, to be able to get more information about the vessel and to stabilize the situation. That helps a whole lot. But notifying the Coast Guard, sending us pictures if you can. If it's not too inconvenient, to stay on scene until we have our response assets, arrive. To take control of the situation, those actions are extremely helpful. As opposed to somebody who just reports it but is not able to stay on scene, or a vessel could arrive on scene and have issues locating the vessel, and that changes the nature of the situation quite a bit.
All right, good, thank you. Another question that's come up: does the Coast Guard ever send DSC messages to boaters in a certain area when assistance is needed?
DSC?
Yeah, digital selective calling.
I don't know too much about DSC, but yes, we could do what is called DSC polling. Say we get a distress broadcast in a certain area, but we, the location of the the location is not very apparent, or we don't have a lot of information to generate a search area. We may just know like the general area, based on the location of the towers that picked up the distress broadcast. And so we could do a general DSC polling in that area to reach out to mariners who are in that area to find out, were they monitoring their radios? Did they pick up the distress call? That kind of situation. And getting that information from mariners is very important, because that can help us to narrow our search area a little bit more.
All right, and just reading into the question a little bit more, does that DSC polling, is that a voice alert or a voice message that goes to vessels in a certain area?
I've never seen it done. I know we do have the capability, but I've never had to use it myself. So I don't know at this time.
Okay, all right, good. So I know that people are looking at the chat and monitoring questions in, but I did write down a few of them that popped up to me as we were going through the presentation. This one relates a little bit, and again, it ties back to the tour we had in the command center, but it highlights a point pretty strikingly for me. I wrote down the number 1, 2, 3 means of notification. An interesting telephone notification by a large margin was number 1. Rescue 21 system was number 2, and then radio was down number 3. Not surprising. Phones and phone technology is very different than what it was many years ago. But But I was curious about Rescue 21 when those alerts are those, again, sorry, it's a DSC question. Are those strictly DSC digital alerts when you get a Rescue 21 alert?
They're so not just DSC. You know, if the distress broadcast comes over channel 16 by voice, we can pick it up. You know, using our Rescue 21 towers.
Okay, I see. Okay,
This, if
so
that makes sense.
it does. No, that's
Yeah.
good. Thank you. All right. Another question from somebody who uh, runs American Heart Association CPR training, and was looking at a response statistic. The question is, how long would it typically take a Coast Guard asset to reach a vessel that's declared a medical emergency and remove the victim? There was a statistic quoted in the question that average time might be an hour and 45 minutes. Can you comment if there's a grave life-threatening situation, what a typical response and evacuation time might be?
For medical emergencies,
Yes.
it's considered a distress incident. So
Right.
the same would apply for all distress incidents, and it all depends. As was earlier mentioned, we have the goal timeframes that we you know, or response units try, you know, very hard to make that time frame, but it depends on so many factors.
Right.
It depends on location of the vessel, depends on, you know, where our assets are. Do we have a, you know, if they're offshore, do we have air assets available? Do we have helicopters available? And then, you know, just the posture of the partner agencies that we use too. Do they have aircrafts available? The Coast Guard uses all and every resource we have available in or distress incidents, and just wanted to definitely clarify that medical emergencies are considered distress,
Okay.
you know, incidents and are treated as such.
All right. All right. Thank you. Next question is, we've seen the tragic results of illegal charters on the Hudson River last year. What is the sector doing to eliminate these illegal charters, especially online boat share sites? I have seen warning signs placed at marinas in other areas of the country. Any comments on illegal
So
charters?
it's unfortunate that Commander Smoke, you know, isn't here to address this question. This falls more in
Okay.
his wheelhouse. I do know that it's a priority for the Coast Guard, and we do have dedicated staff, you know, who, you know, one of their, you know, priority mission is to counter illegal charter operations. I just do not know specifically because that is not, you know, that does not fall under
Sure,
my
understand. Yes.
wheelhouse, but we do take it seriously, and we do, it is a priority mission for the Coast Guard.
Okay. Okay. Here's another one. With so many jurisdictions in the Bay, state and local agencies, Department of Natural Resources, et cetera, how do you go about dispatching those other agencies? And it's kind of a follow-on to that question, which are the most agencies you most commonly use? So how do you go about deciding, is it Coast Guard or is it NRP or?
For distress incidents, we do
Yeah.
not decide. If you are, you know, once we get the location information, it is who, you know, who operates in that area, and we are calling everyone. So we work very closely, very often with MNRP, all the counties, you know, the fire departments. We're indiscriminate when it comes on to resources, search and rescue resources.
Okay.
So if you operate in the area that the distress incident is taking place, you know, you are receiving a call for, you know, request for assistance. We are launching Coast Guard assets. We are requesting partner agencies to launch, because it's whoever can be first on scene. The goal is to stabilize the distress incident and, you know, save life and property. So if that answers the question.
Yeah, yeah. So those resources are all there, and depending on the situation and the location.
Yes.
choose the one that's the best to respond.
Yes, and vice versa. If they are notified of a distress incident before the Coast Guard, because a lot of distress incidents gets reported to the 911 call center, we have a very good relationship. They usually call the Coast Guard very shortly thereafter, and we're working that way as well. So if we get a call, we're calling them. If they get a call, they're calling us. So we have a very close relationship, and we work together on a daily basis to save lives.
All right, thank you. Here's another one. As a beneficiary of Coast Guard rescue actions, I also give credit to the U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary. Can you comment on their contributing role today?
Same goes for the auxiliaries. We have a very heavy auxiliary footprint at the sector, and it's the same for all the units across the Coast Guard. They're very active within the service, and a very good resource for search and rescue as well. So same goes for them if they are located or operate in the area of the distress incident. We will be reaching out for their assistance and launching them as well.
Okay, thank you. What's the most common reason for vessels that call in and initially report as disabled? Out of fuel, engines failure, other failures? What's the most common thing that causes a vessel to be disabled?
I would say, loss of fuel, some equipment that is inoperable that, causes the vessel to not, be operational. So equipment failure is a big one. I would say those two.
All right.
I would say more equipment failure more than running out of fuel.
Okay, so something that you've got enough gas, but something is breaking. Okay. I had one more. I had jotted down a few questions during the presentation. I'm not posting them in the chat. I think we're done with the questions in the chat, but last call if somebody, while we've got the expert here. But I had a thought, I believe this week being the week or 2 weeks before Memorial Day, I think we're a National Safe Boating Week. I don't know if anybody can confirm that. I thought I saw something about that. And do you know, does sector have any activities for National Safe Boating Week or anything we might be thinking about?
I don't know that we have anything specifically for Safe Boating Week. I'm sure there may be something that I'm not aware of.
Okay. Okay. All right. And all right, well, we've got one last question. We're at about the top of the hour. I'm just seeing in the chat a confirmation that it is National Safe Boating Week. So us as captains, as we're talking to people and carrying passengers out for fishing or charters or what have you, it's just a good time to emphasize wearing things. I see a few things popping up in the chat about PFDs. And the one question is, any comments on whether you see PFD use increasing? Does the Coast Guard still find that most boaters aren't wearing PFDs?
I can't comment on the whether it's increasing or decreasing. I've only been at the sector for less than a year, so I can't really speak to the local area. But I'm preaching to the choir when I say PFD is so crucial. It's can be the difference between life or death for a mariner. So we encourage PFD use, and that is actually one of the most. So we have like top 5 questions we ask during an incident. Location, nature of distress, the position, and the next question is usually, are
Okay.
the people on
Mhm.
board wearing PFDs? It is
Yes.
so crucial.
Yes, no, indeed it is. Okay, and we're at the top of the hour, but let's just try to get one last question that popped up in the chat. Question about the SAR mission coordinator.
Mhm.
I understood from your presentation that doesn't get designated below the sector level, but the appointment or the selection of the SAR mission coordinator, does that change depending on what type of mission it is or the severity or how the mission needs to be responded to?
No. So how we do it at Sector Maryland, we have a SAR mission. It's a duty position. So the person is designated by the SAR coordinator through the sector commander, and it's one of the higher level SAR qualifications. So the SAR
Okay.
training is progressive. SAR mission coordinator is one of the highest levels of the SAR qualification, and you stand like a duty period to say a week. So any SAR cases that come up during that period, we already have a designated SAR mission
Okay.
coordinator who is responsible for that SAR case from initial awareness to case conclusion.
Okay, well, all right. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. So Lieutenant Ellis, on behalf of CAPCA and all of our 300 members, I'd like to really thank you for putting the work into preparing this presentation and spending an hour with us and bearing up to a barrage of questions. I think we've all learned a lot, and please extend our appreciation to your colleagues. We know that they're dealing with some, an issue of national significance in the Port of Baltimore, and that needs their attention. So thank you very much. And Cheryl, I know Tony has left the meeting. Is there anything else that we need to do, Cheryl?
Yeah, I
to
just wanted to
wrap up?
reiterate our thanks, Lieutenant Ellis, and really appreciate this. We know you've been in contact with Bob for months now, and we really way before the Key Bridge collapse. So we really appreciate. Please extend our thanks to your colleagues and also for our tour, because we had a few of us come through and we weren't able to see you because you were dealing with the Key Bridge. But we enjoyed the tour, and we'd like to have those of us who couldn't make it come back in the fall if that's possible, once your busy season calms down a little.
Yes.
So anyway,
that would be great. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. And Bob has been amazing. I appreciate the opportunity to be here and to talk to you about mission that is near and dear to my heart. So I do have some questions that I'll follow up with Mr. Thompson on. It's just some more specifics regarding DSC polling, illegal charter, some specific things that we're doing where that is concerned. I will pulse in and see if we have any data regarding PFD use and whether that is on the increase or the decrease. I think that's great information to have, and to see if there's any specific initiatives that we have going on for a National Safe Boating Week. And if there's anything else that you'd like me to, return information on, I'm happy to do that. So
well,
just let me know.
Thank you very
But
much.
happy to be here.
And
Thank
thank
you.
you, Bob. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Of course.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good night.